I wish I would have looked that up on the internet. I'd almost be willing to say with 90% assurance that they taught tithing.
Yeah.
The Joel Osteen with the $70 million remodel of the church and your Best Life author, they believe in promote tithing. It's on their website. So does Rod Parsley. He's over there in Ohio, close to you, and they're all the Spirit-filled church world is this full of this tithing doctrine.
What would happen if everyone stopped tithing? Would all the churches collapse, or would they end up going back to the right way, and then maybe the supernatural things would start happening?
Well, the first thing that would probably happen was you'd be separating the ministers who are truly called of God and truly sent of God. They'd stay. But the ones that have been corrupted by filthy lucre, they would start to fall off by the wayside, and they'd have to go out and get jobs like they should have had all along.
Okay.
That's what Paul told them.
You mean, in other words, they had to work like they should have been working. Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We got dozens of questions here, and I know we're not going to be able to get to them all. So I'm going to go through a few, Rory, and try to give your best summarization of an answer, because otherwise we'll never get to them. Let's go ahead and go to this one here. It says. Okay, I'm sorry, got the dozen. My whole inbox is just filled up, and I just got to pick one here. Hang on. By the way, when you're talking about the Malachi scripture, why don't they ever talk about the ordinance that's written directly in front of that ordinance? Because there are two ordinances listed in Malachi 3:10. Why don't they ever talk about that first one?
Which ordinance are you referring to?
Well, in Malachi 3:10, there are two ordinances there, and that first one says that you shall walk humbly before your God. But they never teach that one. It's like they just erase it right out of that passage.
Well, that's a good point, and there's about...
Because it doesn't pay much? Is that why they don't talk about it?
No, it doesn't pay much. There's about 612 other ordinances I guess they'd have to line up to along with that.
Okay, here we go. If circumcision and animal sacrifice and the Sabbath are shadows and were fulfilled with Christ spiritually in the new covenant, what was the fulfillment of the tithe?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer the fulfillment of the tithe other than this, that Jesus taught giving. He said, freely you've received, freely give. When he sent his ministers out, they were provided for. He sent 70 men out. He said, don't take your wallet, don't take script, don't take money, and God provided for them. Paul showed by example that in two ways. He worked with his hands for many years when he went to minister in churches like Corinth and Thessalonica and Ephesus. And Paul was also provided for by loving, giving brethren. So tithing under the law was mandatory, as was their moral behavior and a lot of other things. So the fulfillment is in giving as the Lord directs.
I mentioned earlier, I said, I wasn't, and I'm sure you were not included in the rewriting or the interpretation of what the old scriptures meant. But where did they change? At what point did they change the tithing of the farm produce and say, oh, well, let's make it money because it's much more convenient? I mean, was there like a meeting where they did that, or did it just happen gradually? How did that? Is there any point historical point you can point to where that changed?
Well, historically, you could trace that back into the Catholic Church, the early era of the Catholic Church, where tithing was brought in as a way to fund the professional clergy. As the clergy became elevated over the laity and became professionalized.
Did they charge for sin back then?
I believe they did.
All right, here's a question from Bruce. He wants to know if tithing is false, what about the rapture and women preachers?
Well, I knew someone was going to ask that. To me, the rapture is the same as tithing. There's not a single verse supporting a pre-tribulation rapture. That there is a rapture at the end of the 7 years of tribulation, and God knows the church sure needs purification, and it's not going to happen. I don't think the church that we see around us is very acceptable to God right now.
All right, Donna and the gang says that they're assuming that you do not have a private jet as a result of giving that book away.
A private jet?
Yeah, you don't have a private jet yet?
No. I gladly give the book away. I don't care what it costs.
No, I think that's in reference to a lot of preachers who have private jets these days. You know, they say they've got to get to where they're going in style. You know, they've got to bypass the masses to get their message out.
Well, my little Toyota 4Runner's a 6-year-old car.
Okay.
I take good care of it, though.
Okay. All righty. And we have this here. Let's see what we got here. Since you no longer hold the common belief in tithing, do you still attend a fellowship?
That's another great question. I'm not sure what kind of fellowship he's referring to. If it means taking official membership of any organized or institutional church, no. The answer is no. Mm-hmm. But as far as fellowshipping with believers and gathering together with people who believe God and believe His Word, every chance we get.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have attended churches in the past myself, Rory, and one time I had a sort of a question-and-answer session maybe similar to what you were saying, because I was discovering the missing verses in the NIV, and I asked the guy up front there, I said, well, what about these missing, because he read scriptures, and the passage it was missing the scripture, so I said, was that scripture necessary or not? He said, well, it doesn't matter if a few scriptures are missing or not, as long as you get the gist of the thing. I said, good. I said, do you have a marker there? Because I want to go ahead and mark this out. And I started marking different scriptures out, and, I got that kind of group, surrounding group, it's sort of like in the body, where you have like a virus and all of a sudden these things attack it,
Well, that's kind of like the opposite of what we were told about the tithing in that last meeting. They told us it is assumed the church tithed. Well, so they didn't take it out. They were writing some stuff in mm-hmm. because they could assume tithing. Since they assumed tithing was in there, when it's not, they were just kind of like writing in their own little, part of the program there for us in the New Testament.
Isn't it amazing how that they use smoke and mirrors to perpetuate the financial extraction from the members? How? Because it's plain. I mean, a casual reading of the Bible, you will see that tithing is not in. You don't even have to be a scholar. It's just not in there. In the New Testament particularly, and in the Old Testament, you say, and it clearly says, and unto the Levites, or unto the children of Hanar or whatever, you tithe to the singers or to the music players or to the Levites. And how they twist that around to say, today's Christians, when you go to church, now you pay to the pastor or the church. I don't see how they ever get there.
Well, after doing this study, I don't either. It was clear and it was codified in the Old Testament, but the day that I realized there was not a single verse of Scripture instructing any Christian or any church to tithe to anybody in the New Testament, I was stunned. We were still tithing at that point when I saw this, and it probably took us 2 to 3 months to come to grips with it. It was just, mm-hmm. It was so astounding to us. How could the church, how could our nice pastor be completely wrong on this? Mm-hmm. Not a single verse telling any mm-hmm. Christian to tithe. It's incredible.
Well, you know what? This is happening in so many different categories. For instance, Dave Van Cleest in his 911 video called In Plain Sight, where he points out that the crime happened right in plain sight. And then you can go right to even toothpaste, which is one of the things that started me on my track to discover the truth when I found that fluoride was a poison. And just even recently, just to make sure that I still was on the right track on that, I asked my dentist and I said, where does fluoride come from? She goes, well, I don't know. And I said, well, is it FDA approved? She goes, no, I don't know. I said, man, did you not get a degree? In that, and people just assume, say, well, okay, I'll take it because they said so, and that's about as much research as most people do. But I think if people research tithing, there would be a lot of upset people in the church. And so I wonder, do you have, has any websites popped up saying that you're some sort of antichrist or anything yet?
No, I haven't heard that. In fact, during the final editing of the book, I was fishing around for the contrary view. I'd given it out to some professional clergy, and I was trying to get some feedback for the contrary view, and they wouldn't touch it. I was just amazed by it. I thought, well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I was willing to be corrected, but no one really would. I did receive a few arguments from a couple people at our old church.